I think if we can move to the next slide here. So just a few reminders generally. So please change your name on WebEx to your first name, last initial, and organization if possible. Please also, if you called in via phone, please feel free to merge your audio and video. And if you feel comfortable, turn on your camera. Please note, however, that a recording will be uploaded to the PUC YouTube. If you have any technical issues, click on chat and then you can send a direct message to us at the Hawaii PUC. And you can also raise your virtual hand to speak by clicking on the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. So yes, this is our second electricity disconnections meeting as part of the Energy Equity and Justice Docket. Before we get into the meat of our discussion today, if we go to the next slide, we can have some opening words from Max from the PUC.
Aloha, everybody. My name is Max Mackrich. I'm here at the PUC. Typically, our colleague Dean would be doing this, but he's out traveling on holiday. So I'll give everyone the reminder of this Olelo no Eao to put everyone into the right headspace this morning. It's actually the same message of aloha from last time. Ike aku ike mai, kokua aku kokua mai, pela iho ilaha ka nohona ohana. So recognize and be recognized, help and be helped, such as family life, and that was the reminder of last time. And I think in this season, to not just think about the land, but to think about each other. Don't look at the literal translation, but look at the underlined hidden meaning that this proverb is telling us. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Karina. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate that. So, so to start, we'll just quickly go over our agenda for this meeting. So we'll start with this welcome, as well as just a brief meeting overview, going over what we discussed briefly in our last equity disconnections discussion, as well as what we are aiming to achieve with our meeting today. Then, thank you very much to our community-based organizations for agreeing to speak at this meeting. We will be hearing from the Honolulu Community Action Program, Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, the Hawaii Worker Center, as well as the Office of Economic Revitalization VERP Program Manager. These are all community organizations who support individuals, families, and households who are facing disconnection. We really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your work and your experiences through this work with us. And we're very excited to have hopefully a meaningful and productive discussion today. Once we have our presentations from these community-based organizations, we'll then move to questions for all the presenters. At the end of each individual presentation by each organization, we'll have a brief moment for any questions specifically on that presentation. But please note that at the end of all of the presentations, we'll have essentially an open forum for any remaining questions that can be targeted or addressed to all of the presenters, or specifically to, let's say, if you have a specific question for one organization. And then we will round it out with our closing and next steps on how you can stay involved and what's next for the docket. So just some logistical notes here. Our commission staff will be taking notes during this meeting. Statements that are recorded in the notes will be filed to our docket record. The meeting is also being recorded, and it will be made publicly available on our YouTube page. And if you're having any technical difficulties, please feel free to reach out to Alika, whose email is addressed here, who is currently running the WebEx. Thank you, Alika, for taking charge on that. So some brief meeting norms. If you have joined any of our meetings or if you were part of our last Disconnections meeting, this may look familiar to you, but I think it's important just to establish these norms at the beginning of all of our meetings just so that they're fresh in our mind. First, it's practicing democracy of time. Hopefully this will be a lively and productive discussion. But also we want to make sure that we can hear as many voices as possible and thoughts during this, during this time period. So please just be mindful of giving space to others to also hear their thoughts as well. Considering new possibilities and pushing the envelope. This is a great forum to be speaking with, again, with these presenters who have taken their time to speak with us today on this really important topic. So this was a great time to think about new ideas and as a space for coming together to think about these things. Respecting and appreciating others' unique and lived perspectives. I think that this is always top of mind, but today I think is almost even particularly top of mind as we are going to be speaking about the ways that utility disconnections have an impact on the lives of different community members and families. So just to be incredibly respectful and also just appreciative of the different experiences that people go through will be incredibly valuable during this conversation. And then lastly, utilizing the quote bike rack to park useful insights outside of today's scope. Somewhat similar to our first point, but if essentially, hopefully we will have the opportunity to talk about lots of different ideas and hear about many people's different experiences. However, if there seems to be going down perhaps maybe a bit of a rabbit hole on a particular topic that's not completely in today's scope, just potentially keeping in mind to be mindful of parking this thought and keeping it in mind for future discussions, reaching out to the Commission on the side about these different ideas or topics that might not be totally within the framework for today's discussion. So for the context of today's meeting, so disconnections have been a concern and part of the energy equity and justice docket since its inception. In the Senate resolution for this docket, it noted protecting households from disconnections as an issue that the PUC should examine. Additionally, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Commission enacted disconnection moratoriums, as well as for Maui after the wildfire. However, most recently, the PUC worked with RMI to explore disconnections in Hawaii and also to look at different policies that are enacted elsewhere as well. This report was shared in the docket in August of 2024, so a few months ago. In response to this report, we held a first disconnection meeting back in October. This was more from a utilities perspective. It featured the Hawaiian Electric, KIUC, as well as the consumer advocate as speakers. However, even at that moment, we were mindful that we wanted to have a second meeting that was focused more on the experiences of the individuals, community members, and households who are facing these disconnection notices or utility disconnections. And so today's meeting is to help us all learn more and hear about the disconnection process from the perspective of community-based organizations who do this vital work of supporting individuals facing disconnection notices. So, without further ado, I will now pass it over to the people who are who I can't express enough appreciation for taking the time to speak today. I am not sure. I know that Robin from HCAP was having potentially some technical issues coming online. So just to give her a little bit more time, I think we'll go to presentation number 2 first. And I will pass it over to Jillian from Catholic Charities to give us a few words. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, right on. Let me share screen. All right. Okay. Aloha, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share the experiences that our clients are going through, especially with utilities. So I'm Jillian Okamoto, and I'm from Catholic Charities Hawaii. I'm a division administrator, and I oversee our housing assistance and referral programs division. We have three, I would say, popular financial assistance programs here at the agency. We have two from the state and then one from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. So the first one is the statewide homeless emergency grants. We serve households that are houseless or imminent risk of houselessness, and again, funded by the state through the Homeless Programs Office. Our second one is the Housing Placement Program. This one is Oahu only, and we serve the same types of households, except that this program requires that there is at least one minor child in the household, and this is also funded through the State of Hawaii Homeless Programs Office. And then we also have a specific veterans program, supportive services for veteran families. And again, Oahu only, same type of households, except that this one needs a veteran in the household. And like I said, this one is funded by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. Moving along into some of the challenges that we face when we are working with folks that have called in and inquire about rental assistance, utility assistance, etc. We have found that the workers see that these households are fearful or feel shame that they need to reach out for help. So this usually comes at a last resort type of situation. So they're overdue at least 2 months, and now getting the disconnection notice. And a lot of the households we work with do say that we didn't want to reach out for help because of fear or because of that feeling of shame. The utility assistance programs that we have, unfortunately, sometimes are limited in funding. So applying for them, you can apply, but we may not have the funding for it. It also requires a lot of paperwork, and many of the households, unfortunately, may be ineligible for the assistance. And we do come across folks who don't have necessarily the education on how to reduce energy. So we try to send them to Hawaii Energy and letting them know about certain type of light bulbs, and now the new I think it's the Shift and Save program, informing them to do certain things during the day versus outside hours. The disconnection notices. So we've seen a lot of folks, they don't open their mail, so they don't actually receive disconnection notices. And also, if they don't speak English, our limited English proficient households aren't able to read that, they did receive a disconnection notice. We do have some folks who are on a rental voucher or in a 30% unit, so like Section 8, Housing First vouchers, public housing units. If they get disconnected, and the entity that's doing the rental voucher or public housing finds out, they may actually lose that voucher or unit, and that's very detrimental because, as you know, those vouchers and units are based off of their income, so it's a great loss to them. Large reconnection fees, so say they do get some type of assistance, repay their balance, get the opportunity to be reconnected again. However, they can't afford that reconnection fee on top of possibly an ongoing bill. Sometimes the payment plans are unrealistic. So let's just say they receive that disconnection notice, but given the opportunity to pay it back over time, it's actually unrealistic on top of their already current bill. Sometimes they have a really large fee deposit because of a previous tenant's um, lack of payment, and thus the current tenant is then penalized for it. And then some of the households we work with, they do read it, they do understand it. However, they think that they're going to make it disappear because if they don't respond, it's going to just remain as a non-response and no action. So those are some of the challenges that we have. And then some potential changes that we can kind of look at, maybe having some energy savings educational programs in public schools. I'm not sure if that's a thing right now, but that I think could be very beneficial. Increasing funding for our already limited financial assistance programs, specifically for utilities. So right now, if you rent and you need the rent assistance and the utilities, your rent's going to get paid first versus the utilities. So looking at increasing the funding for our programs. Sending disconnection notices multiple ways via email, phone, and mail. I know that seems like it might be too many ways, but I think that these types of a variety of indications might be helpful. And also having them in various languages. I'm not too sure if that's already being done, but ensuring that the disconnection notices are in their native languages. Extended time for folks who have vouchers or 30% housing to pay their past due balances so that they don't lose their voucher or their unit. And then a reconsideration of large reconnection fees for those lower income households. And also looking at not assessing the deposit or connection fee based on the previous household. And that is it for my slides. I will stop sharing. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Really appreciate hearing your thoughts and your reflections on all of your work. So just as a reminder for everyone in this meeting, the way that this meeting will be organized is after every individual speaker, we'll have a few minutes for anyone to ask any specific questions on that presentation. But then at the very end of the very end of the meeting, there will be a moment for us to ask questions for all of the speakers as a whole. Jillian, if you don't mind, we had a question come in through the chat that would be good to address now, and we can maybe even ask again at the end to all presenters. But the question is, if some don't open their mail, what would be an effective means of notification of pending disconnection? Phone call or home visit from a representative who speaks their native language, question mark.
I think that might be actually pretty effective. I can say though that it some people might be leery of home visitors, so possibly maybe a phone call in addition to an email if they have that on file. But then also reaching out to the area agencies that they live in, because then maybe the agency can connect with that household and work with them.
Thank you. If anyone has any other questions, they can pop them into the chat, or you can raise your hand. Yes, we have Tyler from Ikehu Utility Solutions. They've raised their hand to ask a question.
I have two questions. Is it possible to involve Hawaii Energy in direct, like requiring an energy audit or attending some kind of like web class to learn more about energy conservation for those? And second, do these programs extend to non-Hawaiian Electric customers that are at risk for power shutoffs? Residents in rental and condominium properties where they are billed electricity directly by their landlord do get shutoff notices. And so would those residents be eligible as well?
So for us, if you have a utility bill, we can assist you as long as you qualify for the program. And I'm sorry, I cannot speak to the Hawaii Energy question though.
Thank you. That'd be a good idea for the PUC possibly to explore, since they are the kind of the energy audit conservation experts, and their customer base extends on all islands except Kauai, which covers all of Hawaiian Electric's, of course, customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate your thoughts and questions. And we will take that into account. We have two people who have raised their hands. I believe I saw Joanna Markle from HECO.
Yeah, hi, this is Joanna. Just to respond to Tyler's question or suggestion, great suggestion. We do, whenever customers reach out to us, connect them with Hawaii Energy. And if we feel that, an audit might be, something that could help them because they don't understand their billing, we will do that too. So Hawaii Energy's been a really great partner in that. Education is key, like Jillian said too. So thank you.
Thank you. I will also pass it now to Beth from KIUC. Thank you, Joanna, for your response.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I just wanted to point out that perhaps the speaker wasn't aware of the Kauai programs that are available through Catholic Charities. On Kauai, our charitable foundation, which is affiliated with KIUC, does fund energy assistance programs through both Catholic Charities and Hawaii Economic Opportunity. And these funds are available for folks, even for folks who are at or below 300% of the federal poverty line, which I think captures more people than can qualify for like livelihood programs. So we do have that available for folks on Kauai. And I did meet with Catholic Charities a couple of weeks ago here on Kauai, and I know that they do not generally exhaust those funds. So, we try to keep them well equipped with funds to be able to address any applications that come into that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. And I think Max has his hand raised from the Hawaii PUC as well.
Thanks, Karina. Thanks, Jillian, for that presentation. Really helpful. I was wondering if you could expand on something you noted in your list of challenges, and that was around that some of your clients may become ineligible for your services or for programs because of their either leakage or work or receiving resources from other providers or for whatever reason. So could you expand on what makes people ineligible for your help, and are there ways that we can address that?
Sure. So I will say that duplication of services, if you are already working with, let's just say, Salvation Army for your utility bills, we would need to verify with the applicant. And luckily though, the agencies do talk to each other, so we can, kind of catch the duplication of assistance. But if not, you might just get a credit on your utility, which, is not the worst, but it's not a good steward, of our funding. So we do ask, several questions. Who are you working with? What does your bill look like, etc. The other requirement that folks don't necessarily meet is self-sufficiency. So we also look at if they're able to maintain and carry on their housing and electricity or water or gas, um, because self-sufficiency is one of the requirements that we, um, I guess, look at throughout the intake process. And so we look at, folks' income, the ability to maintain after assistance is provided.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your questions as well. We do have a few more minutes if anyone would like to ask any questions for Jillian's presentation specifically, but also please note that you'll have more time at the end for any remaining questions as well. One quick note as well, just on the raise hand function. I put this in the chat, but thought I might say it as well. After you have raised your hand, please just note to lower your hand virtually so that we can also keep track of who is remaining to wish to speak. So I will just pause for a second here for anyone else who would like to ask a question. Otherwise, we will continue on. Okay. Thank you so much, Jillian, again, for your presentation, and also for all of the conversation that it sparked. I mean, clearly already lots of different thoughts and responses and ideas coming out of even just your short presentation there. So we really appreciate it. So moving forward,
Karina,
oh, yes.
sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask Jillian to just briefly expand on Michelle's question from the CA. Jillian, would you mind just expanding on this note that you had in your challenges where past tenants suddenly come into a place and there's a non-payment from a previous person who lived there? Could you expand on that for Michelle, please?
Sure. So we have encountered folks who have moved into a new unit and they are renting, and we have seen their deposits upwards to like $1,000 when it's normally like what, around 200, I believe. And then when we inquire, they let us know that, oh, it's because of the previous balance. And we've even called the utility company and verified that as well. I do think that this is more of a rarer situation nowadays, but it was pretty high, at least I know, a couple years ago. So we don't necessarily see it quite often as we did before, but I don't know if the practice has changed or whatnot, but that's something that my staff members wanted me to mention on this presentation.
Thanks, Jillian. Go ahead, Karina. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. I appreciate your thoughts there. Oh, okay, sorry. I just saw the two hands raised, but I think we've already addressed their questions there.
Karina, sorry to interrupt. This is Joanna Marco again with Hawaiian Electric. So just wanted to speak to the issues about prior tenants' balances and whether the current tenant has to pay. So generally when that happens, because it is common at times that a family is living there, and because there's an issue with payment with one family member, they will try to start service in another family member's name. So the only thing we do is that we do confirm that that situation is not present, as well as with the landlord, that this is a brand new tenant, and then they're not required to of course pay the prior tenant's balance. And then as far as deposits, usually flat rate deposit of $200 is required. The circumstances where it might be higher is more likely used to the customer's payment history with us, as well as their credit history. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Joanna. Okay, so I believe that is just the time for those questions. But again, we have time plenty at the end, hopefully, to address any remaining questions that anyone may have. I will now pass it over to Robin from the Honolulu Community Action Program to say a few words as well on her experiences with this work. Thank you, Robin, for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time. Sorry. I've been having difficulties all morning. I'm like, oh no.
No worries, no worries.
I hope everyone's able to see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm from the Honolulu Community Action Program. I am the Director of Community Services. So our agency runs the Home Energy Assistance Program, or HEAP as it's known, and we assist families with emergency assistance towards their past-due utility bill. Funding we receive does come from the federal, so HEAP is federally funded and is run by the State of Hawaii Department of Human Services, or DHS, Benefits, Employment, and Support Services Division, or BESS. So DHS receives the funding from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and then it is dispersed to all community actions in the state of Hawaii, HCAP being one of the four. Some of the challenges that we have been seeing with disconnection responses and prevention strategies at the moment, the only response or prevention strategies available for customers is to be placed on a special payment arrangement plan, or SPA, as it's referred to with HECO. These prevention plans are great at times, but from what we're seeing, most of the customers that are placed on the plans are still not really able to pay them. But because they need power, they go into the arrangements. Some of the families that we see are households who are struggling from either loss of employment, welfare benefits, family health issues, death in the families, a high cost of everything. And a lot of our households are now even multi-generational households. We've seen that throughout COVID and even after the facts of families having to move in with either parents or together with siblings just to be able to make it through, because, as I shared, the high cost of everything. And then, of course, with a larger household means larger utility usage, and then a larger monthly bill. So the main challenge is that current utility disconnection process times, maybe, for us, it's more flexibility for customers going into these payment arrangements with HECO. As I shared, some of the customers go into them not having the funds to pay, but they need the utilities on. So some of the arrangement plans monthly are still too high for them, but I don't know, maybe a longer extended spot time, and I know probably something that HECO could respond on, but could help the families to maybe stay on track better. Some of the other challenges, accessing or supporting the communities in need. As Jillian shared, a lot of it is language barriers. A lot of our non-speaking, non-English households, they don't fully understand what's being explained, what's being shared to them. And so they're not really aware of what they really need to do. So I think, especially like Jillian shared, having information in multi-languages, hopefully to help them better understand the situation they're in, the resources available to them, and then how we can help them address it and hopefully get out of it and get back on track. And as far as policies, aside from maybe a longer extended spot time with HECO, or even more language assistance, I mean, lower utility rates, that's been one of the things a lot of families, a lot of households are sharing, that their rents are high, and then multi-generation utilities are high, and and if they're not working, or even if they are, they're not making that amount to meet the needs. There's still that struggle, and it's still the spiral effect of trying to stay on top and stay on track and keep things in order and stuff. And so, I mean, we try as much as possible to resource them out, to help the whole situation, from not just the past due notice or the past due bill through our agency, but through employment. I know Tyler mentioned about Hawaii Energy, but we also have wraparound services. We have a weatherization program similar to Hawaii Energy, so we try to look at the whole thing. But hopefully, information that's in the language of the household, to help them better understand, maybe a longer extended time, a little bit more grace when it comes to the spa from HECO, so that families can meet that. And then I'm just going to put it out there, hopefully lower utility rates, and stuff to help families stay on track. So that's pretty much what we have, what we have to share. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much, Robin. And I'm glad that you were able to join today. We really appreciate you being here. Yes, so if anyone has any questions for Robin specifically and her presentation, please feel free again to share your questions in the chat or to raise your hand. Again, also noting that we'll have time at the end of this presentation for specific. Tyler, please feel free to go ahead.
Hi, this is kind of in response to the lower utility rate programs. Have you seen any of these of your, I guess, customers or residents that need help be in the medical device programs that Hawaiian Electric offers that provides a bill credit?
Yes, we do have a few of them and then if they're not, and they come in with that, we right away, work with them on getting enrolled in that right away.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, I see a few more. I see Max as well with his hand raised from the PC.
Thanks, Karina. And Robin, thank you for being here. It's great to have you able to join and share with us your perspectives. I was wondering two things about what you presented. Could you elaborate a little bit on what do you think actually works currently? You said that some of these the payment plan, it is helpful for some families and can be a useful tool. What is it in your opinion that works well? And then I was wondering if you could also specify what are some of the languages that would be helpful for folks that you see. Is it Filipino? Is it Micronesian? Is it Vietnamese, Chinese, etc.? What specifically languages could we put in that would make things more effective for folks?
So for the second part, definitely a lot of our households are Chinese speaking, Vietnamese. We do have some Marshallese and Chickees families, some Micronesian. We do have access to some of them, some translators we also have in-house. We have some of our staff who speak it, but especially with Chinese households, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean households, having more access for those households to understand, what their bill is saying or what's being sent to them. And then, goodness, what was it? I'm so sorry. After my internet went cuckoo this morning, it just seemed like everything's. What was your first question again, Max? I'm so sorry.
No worries. I was wondering, what do you think works well for the folks that you work with around the payment plans?
We love working with Joanna and HECO. We have a great partnership there. And so I know, I think the hardest thing, because they go into, and I believe it's like 3, 6, and 12 months that they have in the small plan, but some of it, it's, their past due divided by that plus their current due. And so some households, as I shared, even if the utility is high monthly, I mean, even if it's split 12 months, because the utilities are already high, they're still not able, to make it. So I don't know if extending the spa time or even giving more grace. Some of, we've had families with family emergencies, and then it's just that one bill that they miss, and then it's a spiral from there. So I mean, we, even looking at maybe before going into disconnect, if there's already arrangements that they can go into before it gets into that spiral effect. But I mean, Pico, they are a great partnership with us as well. So to working with Joanna, working with the customer service department, to try to get some kind of grace period. But the spa does work. It's just the cost and the amounts of their bills. It's high, and it's still, it's still them trying to get on top, trying to stay on track. I want to maybe comment a little with Tyler's question about those who rent, whose utilities are included. Our program now opened it to where we can assist those families, so we can help with a portion of the utilities. So that's great things, that we're seeing, households whose rent, the utilities are included, are now being able to be eligible for our program so that we can help them stay in their home. But, just, continuing to look at what's out there, continuing to hopefully work with the spa to get more grace, and not be, you miss one, you're off right away. Maybe extending it a little bit more to allow families the time to get on track and stay on track.
Thanks, Robin. Really helpful.
Thank you, Robin. I see also Michael from DCA with his hand raised as well.
Thank you, Karina. I just wanted to piggyback off what Robin was saying. Is our experience working with Joanna from Hawaiian Electric we've been able to navigate some really complex situations on behalf of customers and with third parties as well to help get that billing assistance and get folks electricity either prevented from being disconnected or turned back on. And I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for those words. We see one question in the chat as well. Just a clarifying question. What is the time limitation, if any, on the federal funding of this program? And how many years of funding has the state secured for HEAP?
So right now we've been running this program, I want to say, I've been here about 17 years, and we have been running it prior to that. So so long as the Washington does not cut it, we will continue to have this funding. It is all 50 states, so Hawaii is one of them that receives this funding, and it's usually October 1st to September 30th. So households are able to apply and come back, if they fall behind again after October, to come back and get reassistance. But right now, so long as the federal government secures funding for LIHEAP and it continues to be funded in Washington, D.C., all 50 states, again, Hawaii included, and our territories will be funded through LIHEAP.
Thank you, Robin. And thank you for answering your questions and for your presentation. I will pause briefly, but if not, then we can move forward to our next great speaker. All right, so moving forward, we are, apologies, moving forward, we will pass it over to Deanne from Salvation Army.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon. Thank you. I want to recognize Joanna and her team as well. We really appreciate working with them, and we have a good relationship with them to serve customers who are in like really tough situations. So kudos to them from Salvation Army. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see it? My screen? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So a lot of what I'm going to share is very similar to what Jillian and Robin shared. We do serve similar client base, so it makes sense. Just a couple small differences. So I represent the Salvation Army Community Assistance Center. So I work with a program that falls under our Social Services Department for Salvation Army Hawaiian and Pacific Islands Division. As far as services for utility on the other islands, I don't think we have too much, but there may be small pockets of funding available here and there. But I'm speaking more towards what we do on Oahu. So we do help community members with disconnected utilities, potentially disconnected or past due balances. And then we do offer a financial coaching over the phone. It is optional, but for clients, after we get through the whole payment process, we do offer some help to look at the root of their financial burden and why they are in certain situations. Funding sources is a little more general on ours because our program doesn't have one big source of funding on a continual basis. We just kind of apply for different things here and there as they come about. We do have our private donors, foundation grants, maybe some corporations do give us some money. United Way safety net funds have also been a part of what we have to offer. City and County of Honolulu, GIA, EFSP, we have distributed those monies as well. And then internally within our organization, we have a national grant that supports families that are enrolled in our Path of Hope case management program. Specifically right now, I'll refer to us as the CAC because it's a little shorter. So the CAC, we have a foundation grant for kupuna ages 70 and older who have a physical or mental medical condition. And that's limited to $500 once a year. It covers many different things, but a disconnected utility or past due payment would be a part of it. We have GIA funds for kupuna 62 years and older that have a disconnect notice or past disconnect or already disconnected utilities. And then EFSP we did have, but that has already been dispersed. Some of the challenges that our clients have, all of this is going to look very similar to what Jillian and Robin had shared. I just wanted to add a little bit about the mental and emotional state that these clients are in that, many times our families and individuals are facing the disconnection because they have had a life event happen. And it could be a very complex situation. Death in the family is very common, illness, hospitalizations, victims of domestic violence. There are cultural barriers, meaning I'm not talking just specifically about language, but how the family functions depending on the culture also affects, right? How they're paying bills, where the money goes, things like that. So these are usually people in crisis. And when they are calling our agencies, they may not have that really balanced state of mind where they're thinking clearly to be able to navigate very complex situations. And so I put that here as a client experience. Panic, they're really in a crisis response. The lack of funding I have on here and what was already mentioned is probably one of the number one things I could say it wouldn't solve the problem, but it would help. Because what's happening is our clients are having to call multiple agencies to pay one bill, right? And so if you can imagine a single mother who has maybe a victim of domestic violence, who's raising her children, is dealing with that trauma, is also now trying to navigate her electricity that's about to be turned off. And then she's calling AUW 211, who gives us HCAP, Salvation Army, and Catholic Charities. And she's calling all these people individually. Sometimes we answer the phone and sometimes we don't because the demand is so high. That leads to more crisis and more panic and more delays and more times that they have to repeat their story about why they're in the situation that they're in. And it becomes almost hopeless. And so over time, when you cannot get out after that first payment of help, and then you get disconnected again, or you get in the same situation again because life has not changed. You paid the bill, but life remains the same. I just wanted to paint a little bit of that picture for the community that we're serving because it's not as easy as a simple policy change or let's just get more money. We have to look at why families are in the situations that they're in and walk with them through that process. So that's my little spiel. But I did want to talk about their experiences in that. They have many other financial obligations, so we cannot isolate utility as something that they're facing. A lot of times they also have past due rent, they're facing eviction, maybe their car broke down and now they cannot get to work. And so now they don't have a source of income. And now what do they fix first, right? Do they fix the car so they can work, so they can keep the house? Utility becomes the end, right? Because if they can live in a home with candles and a burner and non-perishable food, right? But the utility sometimes for our clients, when they're prioritizing their challenge, comes later. And so then they get a bigger hole and a bigger debt. And so those are some situations that we see with the families we serve. Some process challenges, some of the notifications do look similar. So urgent past due reminder, disconnect notice, they come on the same bill, looking same color, things are in bold, but I would say sometimes for clients who are just kind of in crisis, skimming, or they do look a little similar. I did ask my team, so some have said they were unaware of the upcoming disconnection, whether that's a fault of their own or they're not checking their mail or answering phone, but that is an issue. Some have unexpected spikes in their bill. That was brought up by a couple clients. Unable to connect with customer service, that my team has mentioned, but I do know that when we've called Hawaiian Electric customer service, really there's no real issues. My team has said this is more challenging for clients who are working. So for those who are at home, they can leave a message and get a call back. For those who are at work, sometimes the back and forth is challenging for them to actually connect. And then again, the payment plan and reconnection fees, even once it's addressed, is a little unreachable for the clients. And then support needs, access to funding, understanding how to lower utility costs. That's a little complex because there are a lot of resources out there, but you're talking language barriers or even just having the ability to comprehend what that means. It can be challenging. And then people who are unaware of resources and where to find them. Again, despite all of the communication in the community, especially with 211, it doesn't reach everybody, right? So that's a challenge. Supported changes, again, increasing funding for agencies like Catholic Charities Egypt for us to be able to support these families, but not only with paying the bill, but providing wraparound services to help initiate some kind of behavior change or to address the root of the issue on why they can't pay the bill. I thought improved collaboration between the utility company and social service agencies. Again, it is good right now, but I think that's when the client's already in crisis or facing disconnection. I'm not sure, this is just a little out there, but like somehow if there was the opportunity to offer financial coaching to people who missed a utility bill and you catch it before they get the disconnect notice and you have an agency walk through their income and their expenses and how they're budgeting their funds prior to even getting the urgent past due notification, right? Maybe at the first one, there's an opt-in if they would like to get some financial coaching. I don't know if people take it, but it's just a thought. And then Jillian had mentioned this, the housing and utility requirements. Again, it's the stress, it's the trauma, it's not only I'm concerned about my utility disconnected, but now I'm going to be homeless with my children. And so there's just a lot going through their mind at that moment for those families. So that's all I had.
Thank you so much, Deanne. Super insightful and some really great takeaways and suggestions that we will all be reflecting on for sure. So appreciate all the thought that you put into your presentation. So I will now open it to any questions specifically for Deanne and her presentation. Please feel free again to raise your hand or to pop a message into the chat.
I did want to add one thing. We were talking about, there was a question earlier with Jillian about, if they're not opening their mail, right, how to reach them, the phone call. I don't know if text messaging is also an option. where it's like a text to let you know like you're facing this connection, click here, or something like that. I don't know if that's in place.
I think that's a great suggestion. All right, we have a question from Valerie from the PUC. She says, thank you for your presentation and providing us a deeper understanding of where the customer may be coming from. I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but does Salvation Army offer any non-financial services that can assist those in need, such as counseling support?
Yes, so we don't offer counseling services directly, but if a client is coming in and is serviced with like a financial assistance, we do offer financial coaching. Our program has started a life skills class called Yes Life Skills, where we do offer that. It's new though. And so this is where I say funding and the collaboration piece. It would have to be something I think that it would be a program, something that we're going to talk about and fund and have some parameters around it and how we would for people, but not directly.
Thank you, Deanne. We also have a question from Kylie. Are customers informed of utility payment assistance programs regularly or just when they're facing disconnection? She says, a question for you or also potentially a question for Hiko, but throwing it out there.
I think Hiko can answer, but I know on the utility bill, it does clearly tell them, like, if you need assistance, go to the website and contact those agencies. But again, I don't know if people fully understand what that means or if they're going to take that second step to go online and click and then call, right? And do all of that. But it's on there as far as I know on the bill.
Yes. And I think I see Joanna with her hand raised. So I think it may be in response to this. So I'll pass it over to you. Oh, I think you may be muted. Sorry.
That would help. Thank you. No, good question. So, yeah, as far as, links to help, links to Hawaii Energy, links to payment plans and suggesting they call us for a payment plan, because, what we really want is for customers to call us before they even get to that point. That's usually on, as Deanne mentioned, on the monthly billing. It's also, if they're over a certain threshold, they'll start getting the specific disconnection notices. So first it starts with the urgent reminder. All that information is also included in that. And then our system also does televox messages to customers, asking them to call us, because all of our CSRs try their best to work with the customer as far as payment arrangements that work within their means. So, certainly we don't, and we try to encourage customers not to enter into payment arrangements they know already they're not going to be able to honor, because, they're going to be right in the same place next month. And, we don't want that. So, we encourage customers, just tell us what's going on with their situation. And then, we do try to actively partner them with organizations that can help. And all the orgs on the call, they not only provide financial assistance, but there's so much other things that they do provide that we've been so appreciative as far as being able to connect our customers. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Joanna. We have a question also from Commissioner Yost from the PUC. He says, does anyone on the call have suggestions on what improved collaboration between utilities and social services organizations might look like?
I don't know if this answers the question, but I think it's worth, first, I just want to backtrack. I think it's great to be on this call and to see faces and see names. I think it's maybe territory that's not explored. So this is a start of maybe something that could lead towards that. But I do think like at least for us, the relationship with Hawaiian Electric is great. But again, when the client's already in crisis, right? And so the funding is so low, minimal, that even as an agency, we are looking at helping those with the highest need. And what happens is those that are kind of somewhere in the middle, right? Or, facing a life event, we're almost like waiting for them to get to the highest need because we don't have enough funding to help that tier right below. And so I think how do we get to that prevention point is likely the only thing I can think of right now is like financial coaching, sitting down, budgeting, helping them to understand their financial situation, more coordination on how to understand to lower their utility bill without them having to reach out to multiple agencies. Because that all requires action on their part, which they're responsible for, but still, if you're in crisis, that is another thing to do. So I'm not sure.
Karina, you're on mute.
Yes. I saw Caroline Carl, thank you, Max, raise her hand. Oh, also just unraised her hand, so never mind.
I'm here. I just got called on, so I put it down.
Okay, perfect. Apologies. Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, and everyone, and apologies for missing the earlier part of the conversation, but I just want to echo what Dan said to responding to Commissioner Yost's question. I think, Hawaii Energy, we've been really focused on the ongoing communication with Joanne and team and other agencies that to try and just be as preemptive to that crisis situation, because it is, the ongoing support. It's hard to get people to make an additional phone call. It's hard. So I mean, I think a lot of the foundation is in place around the coordination. It's just trying to do as many interventions that when folks are in a place where they do have time to schedule someone to come to their house, and they, there's a lot of sensitivities too around, I think audits have been mentioned, and that there are a lot of circumstances where folks don't want people visiting their home and walking through, and so we've been working, with a lot of their local partners that are already in those spaces to hopefully facilitate access to programs like for on the Hawaii Energy side. And this ongoing dialogue is just so critical because there's all these circumstances and sensitivities that, talking to folks about light bulbs and new appliances, which is a long-term solution for reducing your electricity bill, is not necessarily top of mind when they're facing all of the trauma and that Dan shared about. And so we've been really trying to figure out other ways to penetrate where when it's already an area of access.
Thank you so much. I also see Noelle from Hawaiian Electric with her hand raised as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Karina. I'm Noelle. I am from Hawaiian Electric. I'm the Equity, Access, and Affordability Manager. Kind of in regards to Commissioner Yost's question about leveraging our partnership with the agencies, we do have an LMI Customer Advisory Council. We meet quarterly, and we do like to use that council to leverage sharing information between the agencies. Agencies are free to offer their utility assistance information with each other, and we try to share some presentations that might be beneficial for them to share with their customer base. And in addition to that, we also created a community partner toolkit back at the start of the moratorium for Maui that included special payment arrangement option information. We listed those payment information options in multiple languages, I believe 9 or 10 languages. And we also shared some financial assistance options on that toolkit. And we've shared updated versions of that every time the moratorium has been extended for our LMI partner base for them to share with their constituents if they needed that information. So just some of those outreach options that we've been doing with our LMI agencies we partner with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noel. I see also Commissioner Yost with his hand raised from the PUC.
Thank you. Is it fair to say that a lot of these folks, notwithstanding their economic circumstances, do have access to a phone that might have Google Translate on it, which is a free service that Google offers? I've noticed that program has gotten a lot better in recent times. You can point the camera of the phone at something with Google Translate, and it'll translate any language instantaneously, so you can understand it. Has that been a tool that's accessible to these communities, or do people still not have phones that have that capability?
So this is Robin from HCAP. So we do have some of our clients that do have access to that, and Google. We love Google Translate. It's not everyone, but if they have a phone, we're right away trying to show them how to utilize it and how to use it to its best. So we do have some households that are tech savvy, or staff who are tech savvy, who teach clients about Google and what's available for them, what free resources are there for them. So we do have some of our clients that use that.
All right, thank you. That just seems like that's technology that, if it becomes more widespread and we teach people how to use it or inform them, that might actually be a game changer in terms of kind of democratization of translation services. It's free, and it works for not just looking at text, but also obviously it can translate in real time a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you all. I see a hand raised from Michael Markrich.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Now, can you hear me now? Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
my name is Michael Markrich, and I'm with Renew Rebuild Hawaii, and in 2022, I was working with the Energy Equity Hui, and we spent nearly a year working on this issue, and we had wonderful communication with Joanne and Noel about this. And basically, what it came down to was that 12 states have looked at this very carefully and put together this percentage of income payment programs to deal with this issue. And what they did was they said, first of all, it's very, very difficult and costly to deal with this issue. It's very painful for many people, and there's other ways to approach it. And what they said basically is that they wanted to take the onus of shame and blame away from both people and the utility. Because on the one hand, you have the people who suffer the humiliation of disconnects, and often they're the ones who suffer the most. On the other hand, you have the utility has to deal with this issue, and oftentimes, as I heard say before, this is very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Utilities collection costs are very high. So in the state of Virginia, what they did was they said, okay, we're going to set a cap, percentage of income payment program, which is like no more than 10% of a person's income would go for their utility bill. And how would we do this? And ultimately what they came up with was they said, we're going to set an amount of money that people can pay into a fund, and they don't have to pay it. It's completely voluntary. If say it was, and say it's $2 a month, they can pay into their bill. It will go into this green fund, and this fund will pay the costs of people's utility bills, and while they get to the point where they no longer have to suffer from not being able to pay or are intermittent. And this does away with the constant negotiation that's required, and having people make sometimes commitments they can't keep. They just said, this is a cost this is part of the cost of doing business. And they found that actually when they did this, collection costs went down. This was a Dominion Electric. And when they also had this issue, which was that, there's always some residual feeling that somehow this is, when people can't pay, they're irresponsible, that they're shameful, they should be paying, they should be expected to pay. It just took this completely away from people, and they said, this is not our issue. This is just an economic argument. We can just deal with this. And different states now have amended this, from Illinois, Maine, and we looked at this in Hawaii, and it was like, if people were willing to spend, people who could afford to pay $2 a month were willing to do this, it could do away with most of the issue people are suffering in Hawaii immediately. And I want to say that one other thing is that one of the difficulties Hawaii has is Hawaii's not only the high cost of power here, but we get less LIHEAP funds than any other state. So we're very, very vulnerable. So I have a presentation on this if any of you are interested. And thank you very much. And there's one more thing I wanted to say, and that is that when they asked people, is this too much? You don't have to pay if you don't want to, but is $2 or $4 too much? And people said, well, we could pay more. We'd really like to help our neighbors. And they actually called it a Help to Neighbors Fund in Virginia. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So aware also of the time here, perhaps maybe the best way to do this is we can give everybody just a quick 5-minute break. We can reconvene at 11:18. So keeping it very, very to time. But I think that should be great just to give everyone some space to have some water, run to the restroom, etc. So 11:18, we will see you all back here. Thank you all. Hello, everyone. Short 5 minutes, felt like a short 5 minutes for me at least. I'll just give everyone a second to come back to their computers. Thank you all for the conversation so far. It's been really amazing to hear everyone's thoughts and reflections, and to come together to have a forum on this. All right. So we have two more speakers from various organizations to present to us today. Thank you also for everyone who's already spoken and for everyone who's adding to this incredible dialogue. It's really important, I think, to hear all these different perspectives. And so we're very happy that you all are here joining us for this meeting. So next, I believe that he is on the line. We will pass it over to Sergio from the Hawaii Workers Center.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sergio Alcubilla. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Workers Center. And today with me as well is, introduce yourself, Albrina.
Oh, my name is Alvarina. I'm an intern at the Hawaii Worker Center office.
Thanks, Albrina. So on our end, honestly, this is a little bit outside of our kuleana in terms of what we do. The Hawaii Worker Center we're a nonprofit organization. We focus on organizing low-wage workers. Those are mostly minimum wage workers to be able to advocate for their own rights. If that's exploitation in the workplace, issues around wage theft, but mostly around labor-related issues. But we do have two groups that, when we first started, we identified as the two most vulnerable groups as it comes to exploitation for low-wage workers, and that's our Filipino community and Micronesian community. So a few years ago, we started a COFA Workers Association, that is the Compact of Free Association. Member states or member nations that are part of it, of course, includes the Federated States of Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Pohnpei, what else?
Yeah, Palau.
And Palau. So how we came about in this in this space, when the COFA Workers Association meet, they usually discuss issues that's happening to their members. And one of the issues that keeps coming up, even though we're trying to organize around labor issues, is around housing and some of the utility issues. We did have another speaker that was going to join us today. It was just more recent. She's not able to join us, unfortunately, but she just wanted to make sure that her story gets told. So she's a member of our COFA Workers Association. About 3 weeks ago, she came to us and just to let us know that asking for help with her utility. She's a single mother of 5, right, Albrina?
Yes.
Actually, it was Albrina's friend contact, and she had invited her to come over and to talk to us and share about her situation. She's a single mother of 5 kids. She lives in Mayorite housing, and just to hear that she hasn't had electricity for the past year. So she has 5 young children, and they've been living without electricity. So of course, we're more in organizing, but I do have a more direct services legal background. So try to connect her with the different organizations. And I want to thank again the organizations that presented specifically for Salvation Army, to kind of just bringing some of those issues to the forefront of what people are really dealing with. But we try to call around. We called the city and county rental relief, utility relief phone number. They directed us to a few other phone numbers as well. Left a few messages. Some said that they didn't have funding to be able to help. But for this mother, I think she owed about $400 in unpaid utilities. And just to be able to help her with that, we do have small COCUA funds to be able to help workers that are dealing with issues. So we were able to turn on her utilities with that. But as soon as it got turned on, she just called us back and she was kind of in tears just for her family to have electricity again. I mean, those are things that we take for granted, but for someone that doesn't have it, you're dealing with that, it's really unfathomable. But yeah, so we were able to help her with that. But one of the things that were still lingering, and I do want to thank the representative from HECO on the phone that really worked with us to try to get her utility turned on right away. One thing that was still lingering was the issue with she did have to pay an additional deposit of another 400. So we did contact a few other mostly service agencies, and I think that's still kind of we're still not sure where that is at the moment. We just don't want to make sure that her utility gets turned off again. Just considering, yeah, for her to have it back on and to get it turned on again, turned off again would be, I think, traumatic. But that's more of with the public housing side. And I think one of the things I'd like to see is, I think what I couldn't believe was, even though this, she lives in public housing, that her utilities, she was still living without utilities. So just on my end, what I'd like to see, if there's better coordination between utilities and kind of the public housing authority. I think it's already enough that people are living, in already difficult situations, but to make it even worse, I think by not having utilities is really difficult. So that's one on the public housing side. On the other side, and I'm going to invite Albrina to talk more about it, is on the private landlord side. Let me see if I can just share this really quick. Okay. So maybe hard to see, actually. I apologize, but this is our COFO Workers Association. They were living in kind of really deplorable conditions with the landlord. I'll just share this link rather than it's hard to see, but they were living in deplorable conditions with a landlord, in a kind of a 6-unit building, and yeah, for them to come together, and they finally said, "Well, we want to do something about about the situation." So they came together and made some demands from their landlord to make some just basic repairs. But in Alberina's case, they were living without electricity for about a year, yeah, for over 1 year, and then yeah, they were running, basically, if I can show some of these pictures, but they were running basically, as I mentioned it earlier, they're living with lanterns, right? They're using coolers to keep their food from spoiling. And I think what's just just I couldn't imagine that this is happening in 2024, that there are families that are living like that. And we came to realize that it's not just them. If you go to parts of Waipahu, there's large pockets of the Micronesian community that are living in similar situations. And usually what happens is the landlord uses utilities as a way to retaliate against their tenants, even though, of course, utility shutoff is, it's against the landlord tenant code. But for a lot of the folks from the COFA communities, this is their first time renting. Sometimes they may not even know what their rights are as a tenant, and they're really in a vulnerable position where the landlord has the ability and the power, to turn off utilities and to demand. Yeah, it's really been a challenge. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Alberina, and Alberina, if you just want to share more about your experience.
Hello, everybody. I live in my unit at Young Street. I moved in 2019 until 2023. And then 2020, 21, then my electric thing cut off. So then I tried to ask my landlord to fix, because it's not It's not like the what is utilities corporation. They're not the one got my electric, but the thing is, my landlord didn't even repair our apartment. Then the waters from upstairs coming down and under our one of the outlet, it's like the smoke coming out. So then we call 911 to come over. So then they come, but nothing happened after, nothing been fixed after that. And that time I didn't even know my rights. So we just use lantern from that day all the way to 2024. And then by the time we find another place to move to. Thank you.
Thanks, Alvarina. Yeah, and I know it's a really hard just living conditions to be able to do that. And they do have young children, and there
Even
was
my daughter, she have leukemia. The reason why we're here. Thank you.
thanks, Sabrina. So, you know, just yeah, on our end, we wish there were easier ways for tenants that are kind of in these vulnerable positions to have some sort of hotline or something to HECO to make sure that the utility doesn't turn off, because otherwise they have to go to court, file a temporary restraining order against utility shut off, and for a lot of families that's it's very difficult to do by yourself to navigate the legal system on your own. So those are some of the things like we'd like to see from the private landlord tenant side, and then also when it comes to public housing. Yeah, it's really hard, I think, for our COFA community. There there's just so many stories that we're seeing of the vulnerability when it comes to utilities and housing, and they are intertwined. And we just wish things were a little bit easier. And again, it's a little bit outside of our area, but if we can refer them to the right agencies or to the right organizations, and we also do know your rights trainings for our member associations, and part of that also is just we're making sure that they know what resources are available to the community. That's part of it as well. But yeah, thanks again for all the presenters and just for having this space, especially for Max and Karina for inviting us to be part of this space and just to learn more about this whole discussion. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for joining us this morning and sharing those stories. I know that it can't be easy to talk about just broadly, and then also to share them in a more public setting is also very difficult. So we really appreciate you being here to share your experiences and takeaways and thoughts for change with us as well. Yes, also thank you, Lauren Watanabe, for putting us in touch as well. Very glad that you could be here for this conversation. If anyone has any specific questions, they can ask them in the chat or raise their hand. I also would note that I think Joanna Markle from HECO has noted in the chat that she would be happy to work with you. And she left her number and email. So hopefully an outcome of this could also be a further connection between you as well. But yes, any questions? I know the Commissioner Yost in the chat, but some people have responded in the chat as well, is a question on if residents of public housing, like Mayor Wright, receive any utility subsidies from the Housing Authority.
Sorry, Karina, was that question directed to us?
You all could answer it. It sounds like some people in the chat also, if you are unsure, have also answered as well. So no need to answer it specifically, but
Yeah.
thought I would throw it out there.
I know this for the specific person that we were working with, she didn't have any type of utility subsidies. I think she tried on her own to kind of get it back on, but just didn't have any subsidies from my understanding.
I'll pause also for any other questions or hand raises. Michael Markrich. Michael Markrich.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So when we did the calculation 2 years ago, there was an estimate that the total cost was something like $3 million a year for people in LMI households that couldn't meet their bills. And then we worked backwards from that to find out, well, what would it cost to pay this? And this is what they did in Virginia. So it wasn't a random people coming forward with $2 a month. It was like, okay, this is the extent of the problem. If we were to ask everybody to chip in, what would that cost? And I wonder if anybody has looked at a collective solution at the PUC. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We will take note of your question and get back to you. So just for the sake of time, I'll just pause again for any questions. But thank you. Thank you again, really, for taking the time out of your day to be here. We really, really, really appreciate it a lot. So if no further questions, thank you again. I will go now to Denise from the City and County Office of Economic Revitalization.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us to this presentation. I wanted to give a big shout out to Jillian and her team because Catholic Charities and CNHA have been really the boots on the ground and frontline team to help out with administering the federal grants for city and county. So again, my name is Denise. I'm originally from Los Angeles. The majority of my career has been working in affordable housing in the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles County, and San Diego County. But I have been running and managing the program for the city and county. And so this presentation is going to be a more aerial view of the grants management for Oahu. Next slide, please. So our funding was a multiple funding source directly from the U.S. Treasury. We had funding here at the Office of Economic Revitalization from the state of Hawaii, as well as directly from the feds. It is directly from the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And the amounts that I listed right here in the 3 different funding sources are the total financial assistance for both rental assistance and utility assistance. Just in terms of breaking down that amount, overall, the majority of the 22,000 households that we've supported over the last 3.5 years, 95% of them, 95 to 96% of our households requested rental assistance. And so the utility assistance overall was a very small amount, only about 5 or 6% at the very most. Next slide, please. And so the way that we administered the funds is we work directly with Jillian and her team, as well as CNHA. They receive the funds directly from us, and then they work to help applicants and households in Kapuna sign up and do the enrollment process. Most of the challenges that we heard from our participants and households in terms of the disconnection process currently is, again, everything that has been echoed previously by my colleagues. The lack of sufficient time to gather the needed funds because of the crisis in terms of mostly housing and other medical and or car issues and concerns. And so, which made it, completely difficult and challenging to pay off those outstanding utility balances. Those also that were at home and needed electricity for any type of medical concerns and issues. Again, thank you so much for bringing the humanist side, Sergio and Albrina, to this conversation, because it is, clearly so difficult and challenging when you are relying on electricity, whether it's for home dialysis or for the other concerns that you shared with us earlier. And then the last part that was highlighted with our participants and the households is that, the current relief services are just does not meet the needs that we are seeing, and it's usually only a one-time assistance program. Next slide, please. Again, these are the top 4 common challenges that we have been dealing with in terms of the last couple of years running this program and hearing directly from Catholic Charities, CNHA, and other nonprofits and service providers. Again, the limited time frame has been just not reasonable for our clients, for our households. Again, like Deanne mentioned and highlighted, that the economic disadvantages are just, they're so overwhelming. And so at the end of the day, the necessary funds for deposit, it's just almost impossible to make those deposits for our families. Again, what I just had shared with everyone, the lack of utility relief options are few and far between, and the application process in general is very complicated. And at the end of the day, like Deanne had shared with everyone, you're calling 14 different agencies. Most clients and residents who call our office, they are very grateful when someone in my office answers the phone, because they typically just are getting the runaround if not no phone calls being answered in a timely manner. And then again, the language barriers, particularly for the Kofa community and others, is something that is an ongoing challenge for us. We know that if there's a trusted pastor or case manager or even teacher or coach who shares information and resources to our families and to our kapunas, then they're more likely to, follow through with filling out an application. Or in the very beginning, at the height of the pandemic, we had a portal opening here at OER and the Office of Economic Revitalization, where you needed Wi-Fi, you needed to upload documentation. And just at the end of the day, it was a very challenging process to enroll and to apply for both rental assistance and utility assistance. So this last year, we made a very intentional effort to do in-person outreach events. We completed almost 40 on island. During the year of 2023, our last one was again in August in Makiki, and we worked directly with both community-based organizations like Philcom, the Nanakuli Library, and other community-based organizations that were trusted locations. They were close to public transportation. And also we invited, again, case managers, social workers, and navigators to come to those enrollment events so that our applicants could really be handheld through the application process. Next slide. So some of the proposed improvements that I'd like to propose for everyone to consider today is, again, going back to the increased in trust, just an overall collaboration, like everyone had mentioned. This is a really, special opportunity for us to continue to work together instead of, sending 40 emails a day without really having a face-to-face conversation. Language services, of course, are super important. My colleague, Shanti Asher, here in our office, she represents a Micronesian and Native Hawaiian community here for the city and county, and she has, since the beginning of the pandemic, been doing Facebook Live webinars, and that has been super successful. She has, a great following in terms of applicants and households who have been looking for information from a trusted source. And she's been doing that again for the last 4 years for our office. So I would consider also utilizing those forms of communication. I like Jillian's idea about the text messages. I do think that that is something that could be considered as an effective way of communicating. Again, the increase in funding would be the ultimate, as well as a decrease in utility bills. But just in my experience in the mainland working in affordable housing for 20 years, I think at the end of the day, there is just a sense of trying to have a one-stop shop hub maybe here on island, so that our clients and our families don't have to, again, apply at 14 different uh, uh, centers, get on the bus with their kids, try to make appointments, stand in line, and then be told that, the application has been closed. I think that what I learned living and working in the Oakland and San Francisco Bay Area is the schools in our neighborhoods and all of our underserved neighborhoods where our affordable housing complexes were located. We utilized the schools, elementary schools and junior highs during the evenings. And we had an agreement with the local schools to provide application and enrollment events, financial literacy workshops, parent involvement engagement classes, during the evenings when there were no, students on site. And so maybe looking forward to trying a pilot program, again, doing more intentional outreach with our students. We had students also that in junior high, as part of their curriculum in the San Francisco area, they had to do electric audits when they went back home. And so I was really involved with that project as well, being in the affordable housing complexes that most of the students lived in. That might be an option as well. Bringing that information back home could be helpful. But again, at the end of the day, I think that, just building these partnerships and improving overall communication is really something that we can take care of and aspire for in 2025. So mahalo, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, for joining us and for your presentation. Super helpful. So if anyone has any specific questions for Denise, then please feel free to put those in the chat or raise your hand. Also noting that in a few minutes after that, we will then also open up for questions for all presenters as well, to kind of continue to foster, hopefully, this open dialogue that we are having. Also, just a heads up, this conversation has been amazing, but we are also just a 12-minute warning for our time as well. All right, so I will open it up. In this case, thank you, Denise, again,
You're welcome.
for and putting your slides together. I will open it up again for questions for all of our presenters. Thank you all so much for your thank you for your time and effort to present today. We really, really, really appreciate it. And I think this has been incredibly insightful for so many different reasons for us to be able to learn from you all. So we really appreciate the ability to be learning and growing from you all as well. I know that there was a question earlier from Lauren Watanabe, and I wanted to make sure that we got to it. Earlier from the chat, her question was, do any of the organizations that presented today have information on the income demographics of their clients that could give insight on how helpful PIPP, AMPs, or low income discount rates that are the RMI report? I'm also going to copy that question and put it in the chat again so that people can see it. So any of the speakers or really anyone on the call can feel free to unmute themselves and speak on this.
Hi, Karina. For the RUP program, we did track, income and whatnot. We also have thresholds that folks, if they make it, higher than that, they're ineligible for the program. So generally, for the programs that I presented on today, for HPP, the Housing Placement Program, we cannot go over 250% of the federal poverty level. But on the other hand, for the state homeless emergency grants, it's per county. So they can't go over 50% of their county's area median income. I'm not too sure if Denise would have like more in-depth stats, but I know CCH does collect, and it might take a little bit of time to gather, but we could give some of that to you if you wanted to collect that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jillian. I also see that, yes, that is fair. Denise said in the chat that they do, just scrubbing through lots of data, 4 years of data, which makes sense. And I see that Kylie has her hand raised as well.
Hi, everyone. This is more of a comment and question perhaps for the PUC, and it's along the lines of what Mike Markrich proposed, but a different spin on that. What we had proposed in the DER docket was to make affordability align with our renewable energy goals by establishing a DER credit donation program that would allow DER customers to donate excess credits to LMI customers or customers who lack access to DERs. The commission did say in its October 2022 order that it would, or I'm sorry, in its October 2022 order, that it would take up that issue in this energy equity docket. So I just wanted to put a pin on that and remind folks that it's something we proposed that could help improve affordability on the front end and also reach our renewable energy goals. Thanks.
Thank you, Kylie. Yes, I think that's a great point in terms of aligning all of these different issues that are all so interconnected and the ways that they can continue to support each other. I'll keep this open for any additional questions here.
If I just wanted to add for Salvation Army the question that came up, income demographics. So we're generally serving clients that are at households 50% AMI. And I did want to make note in our program, we are trying to, and that's for the clients that we actually do help. that's not including those who are calling asking us for help, right? So we can share income demographics of those who have received financial assistance, but to get a true picture of what the need is in the community, there'd almost need to be a survey of those that are calling and asking too, right? Versus who's just being served. I'm not sure if there's that information available, but it is something that our program is interested in learning more about from those who, what is the demand? We're trying to measure the demand and who's in need.
Thank you, Deanne. I also see that Sergio has raised his hand. Oh, I think you may be muted.
Sorry, Karina, just a question for us for like our grassroots organizations. If we were to refer someone for utility assistance, like who should be the top, who should we start with? Would it be AUW, or who should we tell them to start with? That's kind of the main, or if there's a, I know, I think it was in the discussion whether like to do a one-stop shop down the road, but I think we're still going to continue to get those questions. And I don't know if we can continue to guide people through it, but is there, who should we refer them to?
I would say AUW, just speaking on Salvation Army's behalf, or maybe HECO directly, but we work with AUW and their customer service to make sure that our profile is up to date so that their call center representatives know if we have funding or not. That's the best way we've been trying to keep up with it. And then Noelle, she regularly asks us, and so I'll update Noelle.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, team. We also see and just I guess to on that topic, yes, I think a mention of a one-stop shop or something of that sort was mentioned. And I think that is something that we can definitely continue to explore. A question from Tyler is, how can we reevaluate the special medical needs program to increase the discount and cap? I see that Joanna's raised her hand. I'm not sure if this is
Yeah, this is Joanna.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in response to Tyler, that special medical needs program is within a docketed procedure. So I think that, you know, we would need to go back to that process in order to increase the cap, and then how the amount was evaluated. Currently, those that are in special medical needs and also enrolled in LIHEAP, the funding source for that is ratepayers. And then, I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. That's shareholders. And then I think the other, just special medical needs is funded by ratepayers.
Thank you, Joanna.
You're welcome. And if anyone on Hawaiian Electric side, if I got that wrong, please correct me.
Yes. And I just want to say give a 3-minute mark, because I also want to be respectful of everyone's time, to our presenters, who I'm sure have a million other things to do, as well as all of our guests who have taken their time to come here as well. So hopefully this is the beginning of a much longer and very thorough conversation that we can all continue to have. I guess maybe we can go to the next slide as a transitional point, but we don't want this conversation to just happen and for all of the time and effort that you all have put into joining this meeting, presenting in this meeting, learning from this meeting to just go to the wayside. We want this to be a starting point of continued collaboration and conversation. And we want this, hopefully, because of that, to be a productive and valuable use of everybody's time who has been here in this meeting. So thank you so much for joining. On that note, looking just at next steps as well as how to stay involved within the docket. So the equity docket, we're currently in the process of procuring a local consultant to support engagement and outreach. Beginning of 2025 is when we're hoping to have them onboarded, as well as to launch these various other tracks that have overall remained a bit more dormant under the equity docket. So that is something to very much look forward to, and I think will be a great next Kickstarter as well. Also, public comments are encouraged to be filed within our equity docket as well. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out as well is that back in 2022, through one of the Senate resolutions, I believe it was the Hawaii State Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which is the Hawaii State LIHEAP Working Group, was created, and the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission was assigned to essentially lead that working group. A common thread, and obviously it's not the end all be all, and is sort of, a band-aid to a lot of the underlying issues that have been discussed during this meeting. But a common thread was just the lack of funding for direct assistance, and the issues that creates in terms of just, only having these, needing to almost like save these funds for quote unquote save for the people who quote unquote need them the most. And so, and just all of the difficulties that creates. So there's a working group currently in 2025, the January, very soon, legislative session. We're hoping that a bill to create a Hawaii state additional funds for a LIHEAP similar program will be introduced, a bill for that in legislation. So if you are interested in learning how to support that and how to create more funds for direct assistance here in Hawaii, please feel free to reach out to me as well, and would love to have you all in the loop for that as well. So I know that we are at time, but again, this is the start to a conversation. Thank you all for your time and for this really, really productive discussion. Mahalo. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mahalo, everyone.